What is Dada? Is it an art form? Is it a musical genre? Is it a way of life? During World War I, a group of people known as Dadaists surfaced, bringing with them an anarchistic attitude and a plan to destroy all established order and start anew. According to them, upper-class interests caused all wars, and they hated the results of the war they had just witnessed. Their opposition to order was most apparent in their art, or as they considered it, anti-art. The Dada attitude towards traditional art was a negative one. The Dadaists planned to create art that was completely opposite to the traditional art that had created a complacent attitude in its viewers for so long. This new form of art was intended to offend people and abuse their brain until they once again started thinking for themselves. As Hugo Ball, a well-known Dada artist, said, "For us, art is not an end in itself, but it is an opportunity for the true perception and criticism of the times we live in." Some of the most well-known Dada anti-art pieces are Fountain and LHOOQ by Marcel Duchamp. Both pieces were part of Duchamp's ready-made art. The first was classified simply as a work of ready-made art because the artist just took the urinal from its original location, signed it, and put it on display. However, the second one is known as a piece of rectified ready-made art because it is a ready-made painting upon which he drew some extra features. This movement also brought about or developed some art forms that we are more familiar with today, such as collage, assemblage, and photo montage. Collage was begun by Cubist artists, but they only included clippings from newspapers or other still life in their collages. Dada artists expanded this idea to also include any sort of flat object they could find. However, the intention of both schools of art is the same: to give each piece of the collage more meaning and to create a new idea simply by putting it next to another one. Another Dada artistic style, known as assemblage, takes collage a step further by adding a third dimension. Photo montage was another popular art form during this time, and it is still widely used today, though it is known more colloquially as photoshopping. This is also similar to collage, but only newspaper photographs were used. These artistic techniques were all used in response to what the artists saw as the pointlessness of war. According to Fred S. Kleiner, Dada artists described the movement as a phenomenon bursting forth in the midst of the post-war economic and moral crisis, a savior, a monster, which would lay waste to everything in its path. It was a systematic work of destruction and demoralization. In the end, it became nothing but an act of sacrilege. The first recognized public display of Dada beliefs was in Zurich, Switzerland. Many Dadaists met here when they fled their home countries during World War I to inhabit a politically neutral one. They preached their message in a nightclub called the Cabaret Voltaire, giving several definitions of the word Dada in different languages, claiming that the word itself is gibberish. Later, he uses that idea to show how society has deteriorated by saying, "How does one achieve eternal bliss? By saying Dada. How does one become famous? By saying Dada. With a noble gesture and delicate propriety, till one goes crazy." When Hugo Ball left Europe, another Dada artist named Tristan Tzara took his place and became one of the most prominent Dada figures. After the war ended, the artists who sought refuge in Switzerland went home and spread the Dada message around the world. Ball's description of Dada as gibberish becomes apparent in Dada music. Several composers wrote Dada music, but many included elements of the absurd. For example, Erwin Schulhoff's piece, In Futurum, is written entirely with rest notes, marked with feeling. Another Dada composer named Kurt Schwitters developed a genre called sound poetry. Instead of using words, this style of music uses only the phonetic aspects of human speech. This displays the most key tenets of Dadaism: reject structure and embrace irrationality. In Berlin, Germany, the Dada proponents used a different technique from that of the Dadaists in Zurich. Instead of attacking established art forms, they took a more political approach by publishing manifestos, propaganda, and the like. A fair was set up with contributions from many Dada artists, but public opinion of Dada art became apparent when they only sold one of the 200 works on display. Despite all of this activity in Europe, it was certainly not the only place in the world where Dadaism thrived. Contrary to their counterparts in Europe, New York Dada proponents did not issue manifestos, but still strongly opposed traditional art. Another difference between the two groups is that the New York group was much less cynical than the European group, and instead much more ironic. This is also where Marcel Duchamp first submitted Fountain to the Society of Independent Artists and was rejected. However, the piece has since been called the most influential work of modern art. Several iconic Dada artists came together in Paris, France, where Tristan Tzara staged a play called The Gas Heart. The play was met with a theater riot, and many consider it the moment when Dadaism split and produced Surrealism. André Breton led the theater riot, and he proceeded to lead the Surrealist movement as well. Many classify the Surrealists as communists and the Dadaists as anarchists, but this generalization is too broad because many Surrealists also supported anarchy. Dadaism also made appearances in the Netherlands, Georgia, Yugoslavia, and Tokyo, but these incarnations have been minor. Dada had an enormous impact on the culture of its time. However, it had an equally enormous impact on future styles. Some of the styles Dadaism influenced include performance art, avant-garde music, surrealism, pop art, and punk rock, but the list is endless. The goal of Dada is to encourage anything that challenges tradition to be voiced, so its influence is invaluable to us. On the Road contains many elements of Dadaism in its themes. However, the most prominent by far is the negative attitude towards anyone who Dean and Sal deem part of the establishment. To them, anything that hinders their freedom is an enemy that must be overcome. Even when Sal gets a job as a cop, he hates himself for it. He says, "It was a horrible crew of men with cop souls, all except Remy and myself. These men wanted to make arrests and get compliments from the chief of police. I gulped at the prospect of making an arrest." The Dadaists believe that it is these men who cause all the wars, and to become one of them would be a horrifying thought. Although we are comforted by the security of our established traditions, Dada has shown us that we must not be content with anything we deem dissatisfactory and not be afraid of the negative responses we will invariably get for it. So what is Dada? It is nothing. It is everything. It is Dada.